whenever we run our method, we run the method public static void main string square bracket args. I'll draw a stack frame to keep track of my local variables. And I'll write the name of the method on the side. Okay, my first line of code says int square bracket array A gets, and then here's a 3-element array with the elements 42, -10, and 29 in it. So on the left-hand side, that creates a variable with the name ARRA. And that's a variable that can hold a reference to an array. And we represent that like that. Okay, then the right-hand side of that is creating that 3-element array with those 3 elements in it. And then the assignment statement, or that equals sign, what that's going to do is that's going to assign a variable to reference that newly created array. So now that variable will keep track of that array for me. The next line says int square bracket ARRB. So here I'm creating a variable that can reference an array. Specifically an int array is what it can reference. But I haven't given that variable a value. So it's just a variable that could reference an array, but it doesn't reference an array. Okay, so the type of both of these variables was the same. They could both reference an int array, but for that second one, we didn't give it a value. And that meant that our second one was null. So null is when we don't give it a value, so it doesn't have one of these little remote controls to keep track of an array. It's really common to represent null as a box with an X through it, like that. And that's why you can see in the back of this pocket, I've got a little X there. So that's showing that this variable's value is null. We represent it with an X. And you can see since I have a little remote control or a reference there, you can't see the X in the back of the other variable. And we can modify the elements of this array using indices 0, 1, and 2. And can you imagine if we tried to use array B, or this variable that's a null reference, to try and modify one of its elements? Well, it doesn't actually keep track of a referenced array. And so there what we would get is a null pointer exception. So big picture, if a variable can hold a reference to an int array, and we do not set the value of that variable, we have a null reference. So here we have a null reference.